Hey, what's up?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no problem. Welcome to episode 99 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I'm here with Big Five guest Jake Copestick, talking everything Big Five hoops, recapping busy weekend around the country with a lot of action packed and and everything else. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alex. Looking forward to it, man. Thank you for reaching out to me, thinking about me. Yeah, looking forward to talking some hoops.
Let's begin with Arizona beating Arizona State 87-74. What were your takes on this game, and what do you think about their rest of the schedule?
Well, I watched the Arizona BYU game earlier in the week as well, one that they almost gave away as BYU was forcing a bunch of turnovers on the press. But Arizona held on, hit some very tough shots late with Jaden Bradley, with Koa Pete, how good their freshmen are. Really an incredible team, Alex, across the board. And then that rivalry game against Arizona State always seems to give them problems. They were able to pull away a little bit at the end here. Again, the freshmen that they have to complement their returners with Braden Burries, Koa Pete, and Ivan Karchenkov, like an incredible group of freshmen. There's so many good ones this year. It's like you can't even keep track, but that's the best freshman class of anybody, and that's saying something with how many good ones that there are this year. As far as the schedule goes, Alex, they have a home game coming up against Oklahoma State that they should win. I'm a big Ken Palm guy, has them winning that game by 22 points. But then you look after that, and holy smokes, if they can get through this gauntlet, having to go to Kansas, they have to play home against BYU again. They have to go to Houston. At the end of the season, they will have to play at home against Iowa State. That's still on the horizon. But this next stretch of games at Kansas, home against Texas Tech, home against BYU, at Houston, and then have to play home against Kansas at the end of the month. I would be shocked if they can get through that gauntlet unscathed. But a very, very good team. They're big, they're physical, their freshmen are far along. Great complementers with the returners that they have in Anthony Delorso and Toby Awaka. Such a good team altogether, well-rounded, big, physical. That very good, very good. But man, that is a gauntlet schedule. If they can get through it, they have to go to some of the hardest places in the country to play within like a week of each other.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on how Arizona State is doing? And I know that they haven't had that great of a season so far, but it's always good to dissect into teams like this one.
Yeah, it's been a rough year. I'll just put my cards on the table here. I grew up a Duke fan, so a guy like Bobby Hurley, I root for, even if he's all the way across the country. They lost to West Virginia at home a couple weeks ago, and he was in the press conference. And he just sounded dejected. He's like, "We haven't really played well at home in years since before COVID." He called it a sterile environment in what they have at their home arena for home games. He just sounded dejected. He's been there quite some time. This is probably going to be a missed tournament year for them, which if that's the case, this is going to be the third year without one there. You just wonder if the Hurley tenure's run its course there. He's had good teams. He's had good players. They just lost a really good one to Kentucky, who we'll touch on. They're 500 now. I think the big overarching thing here, Alex, is this the swan song for Bobby Hurley as they go into another direction? Not only is the tournament success not there, but are things just kind of stale after the long tenure he's had at Arizona State?
Mm-hmm. Moving on, number 14, Kansas beat 17-4 and 13 ranked BYU 90-82. Darian Peterson had an excellent game for the Jayhawks. And Bryson Tittle had a career high 21 points and 7 rebounds. And those two were really sharp throughout this one. What were your thoughts on how BYU came into this one and took the L against the really solid Kansas offense.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, how about the week for BYU having to play at home against the number one team and then having to go to Allen Fieldhouse and play in probably the hardest atmosphere in the whole country? Really tough stretch of games for them. Narrowly missed out on 2 wins. I mean, they were in both of them. They were in the Arizona game till the end. They were down a lot of points and came back and made this a game late. But obviously, the big matchup here, Alex, was Darren Peterson going up against AJ DeBanza. And it's unfortunate that Darren Peterson didn't play in the second half. For the life of me, I wish I had something for you on what was going on here. It doesn't really seem like anybody has a definitive answer as to why he's missing time with any sort of injury. If it's a hamstring, if it's cramps. I mean, this seems to have lingered with Darren Peterson and with Kansas kind of all season. But look, this Kansas team is obviously spectacular when he's on the court. An easy, effortless 18 points. Going after right at AJ DeBanza, not afraid of the moment. The dunk he had was incredible. He is as advertised in a superstar loaded freshman class. I mean, this guy he's as good as any freshman in long. Think about the fact that Bill Self has said this is the best freshman I'm ever he's had, and he had Wiggins and he had Joel Embiid. Think Josh Jackson. Think of all the great Kansas freshman that he has had, and he said, no, this guy is the best one. He was incredible. AJ DeBanza took him some time to get going, but obviously you know about all the talent that he has, and it was on display here a little bit. But how about 33 points from Richie Saunders, making plays on both ends of the court, 24 in the second half, got him back into this one. The center play, though, for the Jayhawks, not only do you have a career-high 21 points, Alex, that you touched on with Bryson Tiller. But how about Flory Badunga, the starter, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks. Moves very well, athletic, long, very, very exciting player to watch. That's a very, very hard place to go in and win. But for Kansas, they built up a lead with Darren Peterson, and even though they didn't have him for the last 20 minutes, they were still able to pull this one out with the play of their bigs. Really, really good Big 12 game. Again, wish we would have seen Darren Peterson in the second half because that's what the whole draw was. This was like a game of the year type thing. You potentially the number 1 versus the number 2 pick. It delivered. Wish we would have seen Darren Peterson for another 20 minutes. But certainly delivered. BYU hung in there. You know, they were behind the 8 ball in the second half as Darren Peterson had everything going. AJ DeBanza didn't quite as much in the first 20 minutes, and even again with Darren Peterson sitting out, that was enough of a cushion for Kansas to give himself to come out with a win here.
What are your thoughts on Kansas next 3 games and BYU as well?
Yeah, pull up schedules here. Kansas, Texas Tech. That's tonight. What a quick turnaround. I mean, that's a brutal turnaround to have to go to Texas Tech. But the game of the night, I feel like Mondays and Fridays are light days here in the hoop schedule, Alex. But brutal to have to fly to Lubbock on a quick turn. And not only on a quick turnaround, do you have Darren Peterson tonight? Also, that Texas Tech team just got upset by UCF. They're going to be pissed off going into their own place. So brutal to have to go there. And then get Utah at home. Utah's not very good their first year under Alex Jensen. It's a rebuilding year in a really, really tough league where you're not really afforded an opportunity to ease yourself in to a rebuild, especially at a school like Utah that's just kind of behind the 8 ball as far as resources go with the rest of this league. And then you bring in Arizona. If Arizona's going to lose a game, look, with or without Darren Peterson, that does not matter, Alex. This is the hardest place to play in the country. As a Duke guy, I want to say it's Cameron, but man, there's just something about these 2 places, now in Fieldhouse and Cameron. You can kind of take your pick. Hard places to play. Hopefully Darren Peterson is healthy and up for that game, because if you can get, again, the Wildcats coming into the hardest place to play in the country, that would be a massive, massive game. But 2 hard ones, maybe an easier one, mixed in there. But 2 really, really tough opponents, especially with a pissed off Texas Tech team coming in. And we'll look at BYU here. Oklahoma State. Huge game against Houston. They with the at BYU with the elevation that they have and the home court that they have will be a really good game. And then Baylor. I mean, Baylor's been struggling ever since they picked up James Najee. That's not to say those are mutually exclusive, but they've kind of been sliding in their own right. So that's a road game, which are never easy in conference play, let alone the Big 12. But look, this is a team that's lost. They beat West Virginia. They lost the 4 previous. projected to finish 6-12 in conference play. It's enough to get you in the tournament, unfortunately, with the way things are. But currently, a team that's 2-7 in Big 12 play. So, like the schedule for BYU, certainly a little more than I like it for Kansas, but tough for both. It's the best one of the, if not the best league in the whole country. There's not really easy games for anybody.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely curious to see how Peterson and KU's offensive transition handles Texas Tech tonight, coming off a big win against BYU. I feel like that they have the momentum going into this game with high expectations.
Absolutely. But again, man, first of all, Texas Tech, really good defensive team. Will be an excellent clash with that Kansas offense and then their defense. But man, they're for whatever reason, UCF's a hard place to play. I don't really know how to explain it. I don't really know why, but Kansas, the first year UCF's in the Big 12, they go there and lose. UCF beats Texas A&M there last year. I'm telling you, for whatever reason, I don't know. People go to UCF and they lose. I don't really know how to explain it. They go to UCF and they lose. Tech, short rest, good team, national TV, just got upset the other night. Obviously, the premier game of the season, but yeah, right on it. Kansas offense, Texas Tech defense, going to be a huge clash in styles tonight.
So next up, 15-7 Kentucky upset number 15 ranked Arkansas, 85-77. Ortega Owe had a great game for Kentucky. He was in double figures for 24 points, and Kentucky made 5 of 6 from free throws. And Darius Arkoff Jr. for the Razorbacks had a good game with 22 points, 17 rebounds, 17 points in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, another incredible freshman, another really, really good freshman. It tried to get him back in this game, but give credit to Kentucky. They're without 2 guards in Cam Williams and Jalen Lowe, and Jalen Lowe being the one point, like true point they have on their team. Not only huge for Ortega Owe to give him 24 points, but big for Ortega Owe because it's him and Denzel Aberdeen, and then the freshman Jasper Johnson coming off the bench that are going to have to play the point. There's going to be a lot more on their plate here. But Ortega Owe, the preseason player of the year, you go to a very, very tough road environment in Arkansas. Obviously, there's the technical fouls. You brought up the free throws they made. It's a very, very emotionally charged game, just as it was last year in Rupp Arena, where Arkansas goes in and wins, and the Arkansas players are chirping Kentucky fans as they come off the court. It's a very emotionally charged game, this one. Especially so fresh, just 2 years after the coaching change with Calipari leaving Kentucky. But give credit to Kentucky with all of that, with the technicals, how physical the game was, how emotionally charged it was. Their best player in SEC preseason of the year, when his best was required in a giant game, 24 points, had to play point, had 3 assists as well. Kentucky got it done. And with Jaden Quaintance out as well, who I alluded to when we were talking about Arizona State, he's given him great minutes when he's been in there. Problem is, I think the knee injury he had last year is still kind of lingering a little bit. And the young fellow, the freshman Malachi Moreno, I thought played a very good game in his spot there. But Kentucky, with their back against the wall in a big-time game, they really, really needed this one, Alex. And they went into a really hard road environment to get it done in quite frankly, a little bit of a revenge game against their old coach.
Before we move on, I just wanted your take. I know that Kentucky coming into this season had a roller coaster with their schedule, and they went up and down lately. And outside of the top 25, what are your thoughts on how they can get back into the top 25 and what they're missing? What the missing ingredient is for them to be successful on a daily?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly health. And I think at this point with the Cam Williams injury and the Jalen Lowe injury, maybe that's something that you're not going to have with them. But hopefully there's a world where Jaden Quaintance can get healthy because he's a giant difference maker on the defensive end when he's out there. But at the same time, the whole point guard play here with Jalen Lowe out, he seems to be more of a score first guy than a pass first guy. It just seemed like there was no straw to stir the drink almost a la last year, where you have Otega Owe like playing more off the ball, and you have Lamont Butler in there to run the point. But like the point guard play, there might not be a solution as far as the health goes of Jalen Lowe, but you have two really talented players in Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen in there. Also, I might point out, last year, to have a center like Amari Williams who could pass the way he did, you could have also a big man playmaker on the court at the same time. They don't quite have that this year. It's a lot to ask of a Malachi Moreno as a freshman. So if they're going to be great and they're going to continue to be what we thought that they could be in the preseason, Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen, you're up to be the point guards. That's what it's going to have to be. That's what they need. And in addition to the scoring, you're going to have to put a lot more on their plate. But this team needs a point guard because Jasper Johnson, like I said, that true freshman is a natural one. But again, he's a true freshman with two extremely talented guys, and the SEC preseason player of the year, and a national champion, Denzel Aberdeen, last year in Florida, playing ahead of him. Those guys are going to have to create a little more and put their point guard hat on because it's something that they've been missing. I know it's been a complaint with the fans as well, but they need a distributor as well as the great scorers that those guys are.
What do you think they finish in the conference?
Well, SEC is a bear because, well, there's a bunch of ranked teams ahead of them. So it's tough. You know, you look at the schedule and it's like, hey, they lost to Missouri, and probably one that they should not have dropped. But, you know, they're 6-3 in conference. Mm-hmm. You know, did they drop some that maybe they shouldn't have? Sure. I look at the bottom of this conference too, Alex, and it's like, Ole Miss is. I don't exactly think the world of Ole Miss. South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, or if they haven't bottomed out already, I think they're certainly going to get there. This isn't a Kentucky team that's going to be near the basement, but they certainly, in my opinion, can finish in the upper half. They have a game against Oklahoma. They're going to play South Carolina again, but hey, you get Tennessee at home. You get Georgia at home, who I know has kind of been falling in and out of rankings. Huge game at Florida in a couple weeks, who I'm excited to talk about in a couple minutes with you. Mm-hmm. They're going to get Florida at home again. Is there some tough games on here? Sure. Vanderbilt put a thumping on them. They're going to get Vanderbilt at the end of March. There's some winnable games here for sure with your Oklahomas and your South Carolinas. But even still with that, I think they can knock a couple of these teams off. They'll finish in that upper third of the conference. That Arkansas win, they took care of the teams who I thought they should have besides Missouri. But that Arkansas win is a really, really big one as far as building some confidence to finish out the schedule.
So moving on, Illinois, who is number 9, ranked in the top 25, beat a really solid 20-2 Nebraska team, who is number 5 in the country, 78-69. What were your initial takeaways from this one?
Well, I don't know if you watched this game, but this was exhilarating ball to watch. I mean, it really was. Both teams are awesome. They're fun. But Illinois, and they had some revenge on their mind as Nebraska as they, started 20-0. They beat Illinois at their place. So what did Illinois do this time? They took them off the 3-point line, where Nebraska can absolutely light you up. They run great stuff. Fred Hoiberg is doing an amazing job this year. And if he's not front runner for Coach of the Year, he's certainly in that discussion, even with the 2 losses. It's 2 close losses, one on the road to Michigan they just had, and then this one to Illinois. But Illinois took them off the 3-point line. And as much as they could, but they also took away the 2 as well. Nebraska 11 made threes in the first half, just 4 in the second half. They want to take them off the 3-point line? Yes, but also sit back. Don't give up the layups. And hey, if they have a bad shooting half, they have a bad shooting half. But offensively, just incredible for Illinois. They're big. They can put lineups out there where everybody is 6'6" and over. Everybody can pass, dribble, and shoot. Very, very hard to defend when you have 7-foot players in the Ivasic brothers who can play on the perimeter, knock down a 3, and spread you out. They play incredible offense. They're very efficient. And then, the freshman Keaton Wagler, nobody's having a better week than this guy. The game he had yesterday. And then to go to Purdue earlier this week and score 46 and upset the Boilermakers in their own gym, which is an impossible thing to do. And he's doing all this with more on his plate, having, to not only pass and facilitate, but be that main scorer as well, that alpha scorer with Kylan Boswell injured and on the bench for the time being. But it was a very good game plan for Illinois, a very good team, and a very good game. And I hope we get to see these teams again, because you had Nebraska yesterday with their center rink mast, he was hospitalized with the flu. They had to rehydrate him. He was sick and in the hospital earlier this week. He didn't score yesterday, but I mean, just the fact that he was out there was big time. But Nebraska did not get the full rink mast in a game where Illinois is the biggest team in the country. No one is a bigger average height than Illinois, with all the size they can put on the court, and to not have your big man, your fulcrum, your key to the game out there at full strength was unfortunate that we couldn't see that. But again, Nebraska in it till the very end. They were without rink mask entirely when they played at Michigan the other night. They still almost won. Look, does it suck for Nebraska that you drop two close ones and you're undefeated no more? Yes. I don't really feel any differently than I did about them coming in. Still very, very fun to watch. A very good offense, very good off-ball stuff. They shoot it, they pass it, they play so well together as a team. Their offense is so good. They're going to be just fine despite losing 2 in a row.
I definitely liked how Nebraska hit 11 of 20 3-pointers before halftime. That was big for them, although they lost against a really solid Illinois team. What are your thoughts on looking ahead down the road for both of their schedules?
Yeah, well, again, Big Ten is a bear as well. There's not really any breaks. There's a couple. I guess you have a couple teams that are having rough years. But hey, you look at Nebraska here. They got to go to Rutgers next. I was just there in December. That place, it doesn't matter if there was a high school game in there, they'd probably sell it out. And it's very, very loud. It's an awesome place to see a game. So that's tough. They're going to have to come back at home and play against Purdue, and then they're going to get Northwestern at home. Next 3, I see 2 that they should win. Just really, really tough to have to. It's like, hey, there's Purdue, and then there's Iowa, who plays really, really good ball. They got Maryland on the schedule as well, who's not very good. So is there a couple winnable ones? Sure. But again, you can't escape the Purdue's. They got to play Iowa twice. They're going to have to do an LA road trip and go to USC and UCLA. I don't think an incredibly difficult end to the season. They just had to play the number 1 and number 5 Ken Palm teams back to back. And they had to play Michigan State. They've already played Illinois twice here, played Wisconsin. So maybe not that tough. There's certainly a lot of wins that they can correct from this past week, losing 2 in a row, but not exactly a gauntlet here. And then for Illinois, they're going to have to play at Michigan State. They're going to be home against Michigan, but then there's Oregon who's struggling. There's Maryland, Northwestern. They get home games against Wisconsin and Indiana, who have been playing well, though. So, again, there's no escaping the schedule of the Big Ten. But I see some of these games, and hey, we get Michigan at home. Have to go to Michigan State, but they have to do an LA road trip as well. But they're going to have some tough opponents at home. But it's a tough conference. No cupcakes, nothing. Can't run from a lot of really good coaches and really good teams.
I know that you wanted to touch on the Florida game. I know that Florida is a high-level team with a lot of great pieces surrounding them. What were your takes on their game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, just a dominant performance from the Gators. Another team with a lot of big guys. They lost the guards from last year. They lost 3 NBA players from last year. In addition to, you have Denzel Aberdeen that leaves. There's Walter Clayton. There's Elijah Martin who leaves and gets drafted. There's Will Richard who leaves and gets drafted. They bring all the bigs back, though. And the bigs dominated. 72 paint points. The most by an SEC team in 50-some years. Maybe the most ever. And against that Alabama team that just brought Charles Bediako back from the G League, you could tell they took it personally. If you heard the soundbite of Todd Golden last week when he found out he was going to have to play Charles Bediako, he said, we're going to beat him anyway. We're going to beat him anyway. And they went right after Alabama. They went right after him in the paint. They made 3 threes. They just pounded them inside. They turned the ball over a ton. Alabama did, and let Florida run out. I mean, Florida was getting runouts from the beginning to the very, very end of that game when they took all the starters out. But they dominated. They dominated Alabama in the paint. They took that one personally. They went right at Bediako, who fouled out. Ruben Shinyulu had his 13th double-double of the season. You had Alex Condon, who had 25 points. Tommy Houck with a ho-hum 22 points. They're so big. They're so physical. And here's the thing about Florida, Alex. They brought back all 4 of their bigs from that championship team last year, if you include Micah Hanlogton, who's also a 7-footer and is also giant, who comes off the bench. But the thing with Florida is bringing in the new guards they have with Boogie Flan from Arkansas and then Xavier Lee from Princeton. There's no way around it that Xavier Lee was struggling in the non-conference league. He was. And then with Boogie Fland as well, yes, he played in the SEC last year, but he had an injury where he didn't get a full season under him. So there was still a bit of a learning curve for him as well, hopefully playing a full year in the SEC, and now he's on a different team. The thing is, Boogie Fland had 8 steals yesterday. And as a whole, Florida had 24 assists to 2 turnovers. So when their guards can play like that, not to mention Xavier Lee was good on the defensive end as well. When Florida's guards were going to figure it out, and they're starting to, this is a very, very dangerous team. You already know how good they are up front. They rebound as well as anybody. They block shots. They just have that interior presence to clog up the lane and alter shots. Now that you have the guards figuring it out as well, getting hot at the right time, this Florida team is going to be very, very scary. And I watched that yesterday, and look, they scored 100 points and they dominated them. It's hard to say anything, but, oh, my God, this team is really good. But you just look at that yesterday, and it's like, all right, well, if they have all that size that plays that well, they can dominate you in the paint, it can keep you off the offensive rebounds and gobble them all up on the defensive end, and their guards are playing that well, that's a team you don't want to see in March that's going to get hot at the right time. And when they can come together and mesh the bigs and the guards, that's a really scary team to have to pick against next month, Alex.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they do against 17-4 Texas A&M this Saturday night. I know that Texas A&M is they beat Georgia this past Saturday 92-77. What are your thoughts on how Texas A&M can make things interesting?
Yeah, well, the whole phenomenon is the buckyball madness they have with Bucky McMillan coming from Sanford. And if you've had a chance to watch him, Alex, so you haven't, I highly recommend you do that. That's going to be a great game against Florida this Saturday because it's almost like 2 totally different styles here. You have all that size with Florida. Their guards are starting to figure it out, but just a very, very big team. Not a very big team at all in A&M, but it's an older team.
Yeah.
They're going to play a lot of guys, and they play so many guys because of this buckyball style, which is press and run and put pressure on the opposing team and make it an up and down track meet and put up a lot of threes. So it's a smaller guard centric team versus a giant, humongous front line that, guess what? You can shoot over them, or if they can go by them, they're going to go by them. So it'll be interesting to see the clash in styles that they have. But yeah, A&M surpassing expectations in year one. Mackenzie Mbako, who was their leading scorer at the time, he got hurt. He's done for the year. And all this team has done is continue to pick up steam. The buckyball madness is real. It's fun. It's exciting. It's fast. They will press you from tip to the final buzzer, Alex. It's a very, very exciting team. It's just that height, though. You know, they don't play huge because that's not how they play. They need agile guys who can run, who can shoot, who can press. That's the buckyball style. So kind of a clash in roster makeups, it seems like. But a very good team nonetheless. Their wins speak for themselves. They had a game where they pushed Tennessee to double overtime at Tennessee and probably should have won that game. But a really entertaining team, Alex. I think at this point they're pretty close to a bid to the tournament if they're not there already, and they'll be a very, very fun watch come tournament time. Very, very fun, exciting team if you haven't seen them.
Before we touch on some of the Big Five, I just wanted to dive deeply into the UConn game against Creighton. I know that it wasn't that great of a game since it was uh, a easy win for UConn, and they handled them pretty well. What were your thoughts on how the Huskies' offense for Braden Mullins and Alex Kilbrand, to name a few, that made sure that they got the win?
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, we could probably, Alex, sit here for 2 hours and just talk about all the great freshmen in college basketball this year. And you bring up Braylon Mullins, and that's another one. And UConn was winning games without him. The only game they lost was when they didn't have him, when they were home against Arizona, who they also did not have Terrace Reed for. And he can be even as a freshman. You have a very good off-ball scorer in solo ball. Now you have another really good one in Braylon Mullins on the other side. He makes 4 of his 8 threes in this game, goes for a team-high 16. He's another feather in the cap of UConn and another threat on the offensive end for a team that can hurt you in so many different ways, not because just of the talent that they have in the shooting, but the coaching they have as well. Dan Hurley is a mad scientist. He'll scheme these guys open to shoot. It's a terrific basketball team that I really think should be at its peak, Alex. If they were healthy for that Arizona game, especially because that was played at home, I believe they would have won that game with Braylon Mullins and Terrace Reed. Not to take anything away from Arizona, but this is a terrific team. And even as good a young player as Mullins is, I mean, solo balls in it. He's a junior. You have Reed, who's a veteran, but on top of all that talent, you have Alex Carabane that you bring up. He has 15 points in this game. He grabs 6 boards as well. And just the fact that a guy like that stays in college for that long, stays at one spot, when you have guys like Mullins as a freshman, you bring in Silas Demery, who's been spectacular these last couple games at the point guard spot for them. Mm-hmm. Freshmen like Eric Riba off the bench, a transfer of Malachi Smith. There's newcomers, there's transfers, there's freshmen. There's one constant, and it's this guy who knows how to go to a championship game, who knows what it takes. And as a senior, I mean, he's been absolutely spectacular for these guys. Obviously, all 4 years that he's been there, but for him to stick it out as long as he has, a stretch floor, a leader, a playmaker, he can do it all. You can't say enough good things about him and how he plays, not only in the UConn offense, but the role that he has on this team just as a leader in general. They're a well-oiled machine, coached as well as anybody, and at their full potential, and when they're fully healthy, Alex, I think this is the best team in the country for my money. And they went to a really tough place to play in Creighton. It hasn't been a great year for the Blue Jays. It just hasn't. There's not really a way around it. I'm not really sure what to make of that. They paid a lot of money for Owen Freeman. Didn't maybe quite work out the way they wanted it to. They bring in another Iowa transfer and Josh Dix, who goes scoreless in 29 minutes on Saturday. So it's been a tough year for Creighton, but that was a wire to wire in every facet. Great win for Connecticut, who, again, Alex, for my money, I think this is the best team in the country. Take nothing away from Arizona. I think this is the best team, though.
Staying on the Huskies for a couple minutes, do you think any of the top 4 or top 5 teams in the conference has the chance to make it interesting once the conference tournament comes around in the Big East?
Well, hey, Villanova just gave him a good game last Saturday, but you also have, you have St. John's as well. I think Seton Hall has fallen off a little bit. They're 6-5 in conference. Needed close wins over Xavier and Marquette to avoid bad losses. But I think there's a pretty clear, UConn's in a tier of their own. St. John's is right behind them. Villanova's played Connecticut close. They played BYU close. They've played some of these guys close here. But say it's St. John's. If it's not Villanova, it's St. John's, with the size, with the athleticism they have, the defense. Well, as of course under Rick Pitino as well, coach as anybody, with one of just the best players in the entire country. I mean, how about the matchup we're going to see Saturday night? at Madison Square Garden. Zuby Ejiofor for St. John's. Taris Reed for Connecticut. Johns is hot right now. They've won 7 in a row in conference, taking care of some teams that they should, but they went down to Xfinity Mobile Arena and they were able to take care of Villanova. But they're big, they're physical, they're long, they have a lot of size. When they can put Ian Jackson in at the point guard spot as well and play everybody 6'5", 6'6", and above, they present a lot of problems to you. So I still like Connecticut. That's a Friday game. Excuse me, Alex. But if there's anybody, it's going to be Villanova and St. John's. But the St. John's team, they went down to Villanova and they beat them, and they've proven that they can certainly beat the Wildcats. But to me, there's kind of 3 teams, and then I think you have Hall maybe grouped in there, and then you kind of have the rest. Hasn't been the greatest of years for the Big East, quite frankly. But St. John's and Villanova, I think, are those 2 teams, with St. John's specifically, with all eyes on Friday night. Make that appointment television. I mean, what a great game that is going to be. If you're not doing anything, I suggest you sit on the couch in front of the TV and watch that one.
I'm actually I'm looking a Princeton basketball game that night at 7 p.m. So I'll definitely have my phone on with the game on while I'm looking.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Princeton, Jadwin Gymnasium, by the way. Big fan. Love that place. Great place.
Have you been to a game there this year?
Yeah, so I did the Penn-Princeton game, which, I mean, it was a barn burner, man. What a great game. Great rivalry game. Penn was up. Princeton went 18 for 18. They had a stretch. They made the last 2 shots in the second half, the first 16 in the first half. I like it. I know a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, well, it's played in like, you know how it is there. I mean, it's a multi-purpose place, not just for basketball, but I personally think Jadwin is awesome. I've been there, I think 3 or 4 times, but I went this year for Penn Princeton. It was a great game. Good, pretty good crowd there as well. But yeah, I think Jadwin is awesome. A lot of people might think otherwise, though.
Yeah. So moving on to the Big 5 hoops. What are your thoughts on how everything is going at this very moment with the conference for every Big 5 team?
Yeah, I'll start with the teams I think are trending in the right direction, and there's quite a few of them, Alex, and it hasn't always been that way in the last couple of years in the Big 5. I mean, there is a 3-year drought here where there hasn't been a Big 5 team in the NCAA tournament, and there was years where you might get 2 or 3 teams in there with a Villanova or a Temple or a St. Joe's or a LaSalle. It's not, it hasn't been like that the last couple of years. These programs have fallen on some hard times. There is 4 first-year coaches in the Big 5. You have Darius Nichols at LaSalle. You have Kevin Willard at Villanova. You have Steve Donahue in a very odd situation that I'll touch on, being the head coach at St. Joe's now. And then you have Fran McCaffrey, who comes home to Penn following a long tenure at Iowa. But I'll start with Villanova. And it's with Kevin Willard in there, it's a much, much better coach team. Their offense is very good. They have a very good freshman point guard in Caden Lewis. If you haven't seen him play, I feel like he can get buried, but just with how good the whole freshman class is in the country. He's another guy that is playing at such a high level, but you have all these other guys, and rightfully so. Darren Peterson, DeBanza, Cam Boozer. All these other guys grab the headlines, and they should. But a guy like a Caden Lewis, I don't think is being talked about enough. Is Villanova, a 3-year streak without making the tournament since Jay Wright's last year. He comes in, and he's a giant reason why they're trending toward a tournament berth in Kevin Willard's first year. They can spread you out. They have scores. They have veteran guards. Devin Askew, the 6th-year Long Beach State transfer coming off the bench. He's healthy. He had 20 points in the game against Providence that I was at on Friday night. Defensively, I'd say that's Kevin Willard will be the first one to tell you that that's where they need to improve. Friday was a great step. Providence, who was down Corey Floyd and down Jason Edwards, 2 guys who would handle the ball for the most part, they were without him. So what Villanova do? They pressured the ball a lot. They forced 10 turnovers in the first half, gave them 15 points off turnovers in the first 20 minutes. They shot the lights out. It was a very workmanlike win for Villanova. Providence made it close early second half, but overall arching theme here, here's the thing with Villanova, Alex. What's kept them out of the tournament the last couple of years is losing games to teams that you shouldn't, is losing quad 3 and quad 4 games. besides the Creighton game, which they're on the outside looking in right now, and that their hopes are dwindling if they're going to keep losing games. They sit at 12-10. That's the only questionable one they've had all year. They lost in overtime to UConn. They lost at Xfinity Mobile to St. John's in a relatively close game, but St. John's is a good tournament team. They lost at Michigan when they were pulverizing everybody, and they lost at BYU. You know, these aren't like bad ones to lose, but they've taken care of every game that Villanova should have won. They made sure they checked off the box on that one. So the coaching is better. They're not losing games that they should. They should not. And a very good cast of players as well. A dominant big man, double-double machine in Duke Brennan. Very good freshman point guard in Caden Lewis. A very good shooting guard in Bryce Lindsey, who made 9 threes in the game earlier this year. Villanova's looked really, really good. And they have some games coming up. Seton Hall, and I'll be there Saturday in Washington, D.C. to see them play Georgetown. They have a couple more that they're going to have to check the boxes on that they should win if they want to march toward the tournament. But been a very, very successful year that, quite frankly, they've outperformed expectations year one under Kevin Willard. I'm going to roll right into Drexel of all teams, Alex, because I'm doing a story on them, and I'm going to hopefully talk to one of their coaches tonight about Drexel. But this is a team that started 0-3 in conference play. At one point sat at 7-10 overall. They lost their 4 leading scorers from a year ago. And I know they're a small team, and they play in the CAA, and they kind of play sixth fiddle in their own city because they just got in the Big Five a couple of years ago, and there's 5 teams with history and tradition and winning. But they've just ripped off 6 of their last 7. They have the best effective field goal percentage defense in the country since January 1st. I was there Thursday against Hampton. They held Hampton to 51 points in a season low in scoring. Poor percentages across the board by teams that they're playing. Their defense is locking people up. They're doing enough offensively. I say when I watch Drexel, it's gritty, it's not pretty. But the thing is, Alex, winning is not a beauty pageant, and it's not a beauty contest. All you have to do is win to stack one in the standings. They've done a great job of that. They could not string 40 minutes together early in the year. They played well one half. They wouldn't play so well another. They're starting to do that and just grind games out, especially on the defensive end. I mean, just putting teams in a straitjacket. Shutting off the three-point line. They have very good individual defenders. And I think a very, very good coach in Zach Spiker at Drexel, who at a place where, again, he's sixth fiddle in his own city. There's 5 other Division I programs in his own city that are vying for some guys that he'll be looking at, that are vying for the same talent in the city that he's looking for. And if it's transfers, if it's JUCO players, Division III players, it doesn't matter. He gets the most out of every team that he has. You're seeing that once again with Drexel. And this was a team that was finished to pick 11-14 in the CAA preseason poll. They currently sit in a tie for third place with a very winnable 2-game stretch coming up on the road at Campbell and at Elon. So Drexel, they just wanted a buzzer beater too. Length of the court with 3 seconds left. Drexel went and scored a buzzer beating layup. They've looked good, but I think the hottest team to talk about right now is St. Joe's. If you haven't watched them. Very weird situation. Billy Lang leaves in the offseason, the head coach of St. Joe's, to go to the Knicks. So Steve Donahue, who just got fired at Penn, who was hired to be St. Joe's associate head coach, was a good friend of Billy Lang, he steps in. It's bumpy early. They lose to Penn. They give up 100 points at UNLV. They lose a game up at Syracuse, who I guess a power conference team, but Syracuse isn't very good. Not to mention, that was a game that they were up for a little bit in. They dismissed Deuce Jones, who was their leading scorer. Everybody thought all hell had broken loose on Hawk Hill. And Donahue has got these guys playing good ball. They're sharing it. Derek Simpson, their point guard, he's shooting the ball well. He's not turning the ball over. He's playing the best of both worlds here. He's not only scoring well, passing well. They're starting to shoot the 3 better. They were an abysmal 3-point shooting team, and overall for the whole season are not a great 3-point shooting team. They've been making them now. Dacier Haskins, the redshirt sophomore, had 6 of them at 20 points in the first half in a win against LaSalle. Joe's is playing really, really good ball now. They're cohesive. They're having fun. It didn't look like this a month ago. It looked like things were going to spiral out of control. and the Hawks are going to be in a really bad spot, Alex. But the Hawks look good. They have amazing defensive players. I mean, just as a team, the size, the length, the athleticism, as good of a rim protector and post presence as on the defensive end as you'll see in Justice Ajabo. There's a lot to like about this team. There's a lot of talent. And now that Steve Donahue got thrust into the head coaching role like 2 months before the season started, they're starting to get familiar with each other and figure it out. And out of nowhere, if the season ended today, the Hawks would have a top 4 seed in the Atlantic 10. Nobody saw that coming or would have thought. But the Hawks, Alex, that's another team. Hey, if you got a minute and you can see them play Saturday, the Hawks are playing some good basketball. Quite frankly, out of nowhere, Alex, having won 6 of their last 7.
Yeah. They look good as well as Temple.
Yeah. They're another team that has very, very much surpassed expectations this year. They sit a game out of first place in the American Conference. I didn't think very much of them. They only brought 4 players back, one of which includes one of their walk-ons. But they bring in a bunch of transfers. You just didn't really know what they had. You didn't know what they had, how it was going to work together. There's so much unknowns with these guys coming from smaller schools. They had a point guard who was caught up in the gambling scandal, and C.J. Hines. He got dismissed from the team. They had another player, an A.J. Smith, who was a nice player for them off the bench, season-ending injury. There's newness. There's stuff outside the team going on. They had an assistant coach in Bill Courtney, God rest his soul, passed away a couple of weeks. There's so much going on with this team, and yet they find themselves 1 game out of first. They got Gavin Griffiths from Nebraska, a former 5-star recruit, who's completely resurrected his college career, shooting the 3 with confidence, blocking shots, highlight reel dunks. Darian Ford, who they got from Arkansas State, he played against his former coach in Brian Hodgson, who took the job at South Florida, and he didn't go with him. Darian Ford went to Temple, lit up his former coach. Aiden Tobiason, who stayed, and by the way, Temple ravaged in the transfer portal. The fact they brought 4 guys back, that was a lot in their conference. Everybody picks from the American. It's a totally different team, but the returners that they had are playing very well. I did not see this coming. They were picked 9th in the preseason. And they should, quite frankly, their conference record should be better than it was. I was at the game against Charlotte last week, which, quite frankly, they blew in overtime. They'll be the first to tell you that they should have had that win. They did something similar to Florida Atlantic. You know, they had 2 good teams in this conference on the ropes at home. But certainly surpassed expectations. There's a lot going on there on North Broad. I'm a Temple alum. I'm happy that they're having the success that they are, and hopefully they can not only continue this, but in Adam Fisher's 3rd year, hopefully this program can start to get turned around a little bit, Alex.
I did catch the game against South Florida the other night.
Yeah, first of all, what a great game, too. Yeah. What a great game. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up and made me think about it again, because the 4 guys they brought back, one of them is Connor Gale, the walk-on. Aiden Tobiason, the other, who had 22 points. He was another guy that returned. Babatunde Dorodola, their backup big man, he fouled out of this game. He made way for their 3rd-string center, Mo Keita, who was the only other guy who returned, who seldom played last year. His career high is 4 points, and he had 2 big free throws and the game-winning tip-in with the 6 seconds left. And when Mo Keita's name got called, he was there to save the day for the Owls. Very unlikely hero, I will say, and a very, very exhilarating win for Temple Saturday.
Mm-hmm. What does your schedule look like for covering games the next 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Let me see if I have my handy-dandy schedule in front of me, Alex, and I can tell you. Because I know what I have this week. I make sure I write everything down. I'm a pen and paper guy, so I have a paper calendar here. I write everything.
Nice.
I was at 4 games last week, and I almost burned myself out. So I'm not doing as many. But Wednesday, I'll be at St. Joe's, George Washington, at Hagan Arena. And then I'm doing a D.C. road trip Saturday. I'm going to see Villanova, Georgetown, Saturday at noon, and then driving out to Fairfax to see St. Joe's play George Mason. George Mason has lost 2 games all year. 2 games. A very, very good Atlantic 10 team. It should be a very, very good Atlantic 10 game, quite frankly, with the Hawks, especially if they win Wednesday night. So I'll be there for that. And then next week, funny you ask, I even got to see what I'm getting myself into. Oh, boy, Alex. 5 games in 5 days. Maybe 6 in 6 days. Oh, boy. So VCU at LaSalle on the next Wednesday. Monmouth and Drexel at 7 o'clock. Anytime Drexel's a standalone game, I definitely try to get down there. The Ivy League does the Friday, Saturday, like back-to-back games. So it's nice that Penn is 2 home games in 2 days. 7 o'clock on the 13th against Columbia. 6 o'clock Cornell on the 14th. And then Temple has the afternoon game on that Sunday against North Texas at 2 o'clock. So busy, 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 Alex. But you look at the calendar, it's like, hey, March is here. The bad news is it's almost over. But you know what? I got another month in me.
Yeah. Will you be making any other trips to Jadwin this season?
Probably not, because I made sure to circle it this year with Fran McCaffrey being at Penn. I wanted to make sure I was at that Penn-Princeton game. It was the first Ivy League game, not to mention that the Princeton now leads the all-time rivalry, 127 to 126. So it's a once-a-year thing. The trip isn't awful. It's only maybe an hour for me. I like going there for the Penn game, but unless another Big Five team is up there, probably my one and only trip until next year will be when Penn was there this year.
I love it. I just wanted to let you know that I love listening to the Big Five Spaces with you, Aaron Bracey, and whoever you have on that night. And I'm looking forward to listening tonight. I'm sure that there will be great content throughout this one and the upcoming ones, and just keep up the great work.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for thinking of me. Yeah, we're doing another Spaces tonight. Kind of hard to get everybody's schedule. My co-host Kyle as well on the same page here, but we were tonight. And you know what, Alex? There's a lot of good mojo in the Big Five. A lot of teams are winning. Hasn't always been like this. There was a time last year where the Big Five would go maybe 3 or 4 days without a win, and we'd have some bad losing streaks. So the fact that the teams are good, it's a lot of fun. The fans are excited. I feel like some of the gyms are a little bit more packed, but I appreciate your kind words. Hoping you can tune in tonight. Yeah. A lot of good mojo in the Big Five. It's not so much fun when they're losing and you got to be talk bad about everybody, but just when you're looking towards making the tournament and the excitement that goes along with that, it's a lot more fun than talking about like, well, are these coaches gonna keep their job next year? So we're in a good spot. But thank you very much for the kind words there.
Thank you so much for hopping on and spending some time talking basketball with everything that's going on around the country. And I definitely have you back on soon to talk more. Definitely, we can schedule a day in the coming weeks before the conference tournament builds. And thanks again.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for reaching out to me and Aaron. I'm sure Aaron would love to join you another time too. But yeah, absolutely. We'll do this again. But thank you for thinking about me, and thank you for the invite to have me on.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great time at the games.
Thank you, man. Thank you. You do the same at Jadwin. It's a great place.
Thank
Always
you.
a good time to see a game, man. Have a good night. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. You too.
Take care, man.
Thank you.